All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're here today for another IdeaScale webinar, Practical Innovation, a Primer for Strategy with Tammi Spring. This will be an hour-long webinar, and a recording will be sent out afterwards to all registrants. In just a few minutes, I'll pass things off to Tammi for her presentation, and then we'll shift into an interactive Q&A. It'll go back to Tammi, and then we will wrap things up. We ask that you hold your questions until the Q&A segment, just so they're properly aligned. All right, and to start things off, I will briefly cover who IdeaScale is and what we do. We work to empower companies, agencies, and organizations to harness the power of crowdsourcing to drive innovation. We are government industry leaders as the only FedRAMP certified innovation management platform. We've been helping organizations, companies transform their cultures for almost 15 years now, as we were established in 2009. And I will introduce Tammi to you. So today we're joined by Tammi Spring. Tammi is an award-winning innovation expert, and we're lucky to have her here at IdeaScale as a senior innovation strategist. Some of you may have had the pleasure of working with Tammi as a client. I have as a co-worker, and now she's been so kind as to come and share her knowledge with us today. And with that, I will pass things over to Tammi.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. It is so fantastic to be here. I am happy to talk crowdsourcing and innovation with you. One of the most interesting things that's happened for me in working with hundreds and thousands of clients over the years has been that people come in with different understandings about the terminology and what they're doing and what their strategy approach is. And so we thought, let's bring this all back together and do a primer and get a base level understanding of how we can talk to each other about using crowdsourcing as a methodology for innovation. So we'll start out with the next slide. Just some terms to begin. Crowdsourcing, the strategic methods of engaging a group of people to voluntarily contribute their ideas, creative ability, talent, resources, intellectual property, their time and effort to answer a question or to solve a problem. What happens here is that when people get started in crowdsourcing, they often throw everything at this, like, let's make everything a crowdsourcing program. But only about 20% of those projects that come through as concepts for these projects are really well fitted for this type of program and engagement. The other 80% are often issues where solutions exist, they're known, and the commitment to implementation is not there for budget reasons or timing reasons. Internal plannings and strategy. But we want to keep in mind that when you are crowdsourcing, only about 20% of the things that you think might fit are actually going to be really excellent crowdsourcing engagements. The next one is community. These are the individuals and teams of people who contribute knowledge and skills to the collective intelligence of a project. Communities are internal, they're curated, they're open. So crowdsourcing is people-powered innovation. Building a community requires that you have established trust, a psychologically safe place for people to be heard, and ultimately to create change and bring new and novel ideas to life. In the community's internal, is your small group, maybe your office, maybe your program, whatever something is that you have control over. A curated community is one in which it's your group and you invited someone outside of your group to participate. And an open community is one that is completely open regardless of background, age, location, where someone is in their study of this problem. This is open for the possibility that anyone has the knowledge and skills to contribute a solution. And let's talk about innovation. So these innovation isn't just about saving money or making money. Innovation is around creative, technical, and scientific issues. It can be a process, a product, or a model. And this runs the gamut from environment to social to businesses. It's everything that you can imagine. Innovation has a place there. And the three types of innovation that we're talking about today is innovation that interrupts. You're going to do something in a new way that results in making the old way or thing obsolete. So doing something in a new way, you're going to interrupt what's happening. You're going to do something different, but it makes the old way obsolete, or it surpasses that. Then you can iterate. Iterate is improving upon your invention for better use. And this is doing things in stages, and why we talk about in innovation processes that if you get 20% of the way from where you were at the beginning, just keep moving up and up in these increments. And then there's invent, to create something entirely, purely new. And there are a lot of opportunities for that to happen in our world with the brilliance and creativity of the crowd. So here is my why, what, and who. And I could say 90% of the organizations I've worked with over the last 15 years often start out with who and work their way from there. Like, who are we working with, our internal curated or open group? And then they start thinking about what they're going to do. And then sometimes they get to why, especially for young organizations or people who are early in starting this out. And what I ask everyone to do is flip this around to the way we have it written here, which is start with your why. Why are you here? Are you engaging a workforce or community? Are you looking to create a culture of collaboration? Do you want to solve a specific problem? Are you trying to get some iterative development on something that exists? Or are you trying to accelerate a timeline to solution, in the sense that, if you had 5 years, you could build it, with $10 million. But if you want to accelerate that timeline down to 1.5 or 2 years, you're going to put the money into a crowd engagement and get many people to solve that problem to get there quickly. Then you look at what it is that you're doing. Discovery, ideation, iterative development, challenge and prize competitions, hackathons, grand challenges. And then say, okay, here's why we're doing this. This is what we want to accomplish. Now, who would be the best people to solve that? And a lot of times you have to start internally because of the risk assessments within your own organization, your first time maybe doing some crowdsourcing. Sometimes you can start out clearly with just an open program from the beginning. And say that when we're talking about discovery in the what, this is related to problem sensing and understanding the problems that need to be addressed. Discovery is also seeking information about what is already being done in a technical or scientific area or creative area. So starting at this discovery, many campaigns or crowdsourcing programs are run at a discovery level. Other companies do discovery before they launch a crowdsourcing program. So whatever you need to do, this helps you problem sense what are the most important things we should be focusing on, or what solutions have other people out there already come up with that we want to understand, so we have a new baseline from which to launch. And what we like to know here, Lizzie has a poll, and we'd like to know where you are today. What fits your current innovation program? Where are you today? Are you engaging your workforce? Are you doing some iterative development? And if you scroll all the way down to what type of program are you running and solving problems with discovery, challenge and prize competitions, things like that. and who is participating. So you get a minute to fill out the poll. Everyone participate. We'd love to hear where you are today. And I'd like to know who I'm talking to because I can't see you all right now. So this helps me understand who our audience is today.
We're getting some great participation, Tammy. I'm going to
Okay.
give it about 20 more seconds and then
Yeah.
we'll end the poll and share results.
Yeah, don't overthink the answer to this. Just kind of go with your first intuition. If you're overthinking it, just where is your program today? And I can see questions coming in already on the Q&A tab, so we'll get to those later. I look forward to hearing what you all have to say. And while we're waiting for the poll results to come in, I'll let you guys know that for the Q&A, we're going to open up the audio for those who would like to ask their question, and I can hear and we'll have a little conversation about it. This is always the best. You know, we don't want to be talking at you. We want to be talking with you. All right. So engagement is 23%. Collaboration is 22%. All right, we got some problem solvers in there, 34%. That's excellent. Iterative development, 13, and accelerating timeline. Okay, great. And then if you could scroll, Lizzie, for that other one, what types are they running? I can only see the top question result. I don't know if that's possible for you to do that. Okay. Here we are. What type of program are you running? So discovery, 23%, ideation, 34%, and iterative development, 30%, challenge and prize competitions, 13%. Who is participating? All right. Internal. Yep. Okay. 52% of you are running internal programs right now. So maybe when we get into our talk, we'll find out if you're also co-running other programs. Curated and open, 16%. Great. Well, thank you all for taking some time to answer that poll and to share your current experience with us. I think that aligns with what I've worked with so far in the IdeaScale clientele too. Is the highest percent is internal and doing some problem sensing and problem solving. All right, so here's where we are in the why we're here to do this. And the important part in why we are solving problems, that crowdsourcing gives us a way to do this collectively, collaboratively, and that we can do this together faster, we can understand each other better, and we can quickly get to a place, especially if you're doing problem solving or iterative development and accelerating timelines, is to figure out where we're investing our time and money and resources so that if you hit a fail point while you're crowdsourcing, you can stop and pivot and go in another direction, as opposed to making a huge multi-year, multi-million-dollar investment in hoping to come out with a solution at the end of that time. And I guess that kind of gets us back to one of these basic conversations about why are we crowdsourcing? Why do we want to talk to a crowd in the first place instead of just hiring a person or a group to do something? I think that, over the years we've seen there are types of organizations that need to have guaranteed control over things, and that the way that they do business is kind of a one-to-one. For those businesses who've been able to shift and say, we'd like to work with multiple people at once, we'd like to discover who else out there has these talents and skills, who else would we like to work with, especially in the government space, when we're looking at enhancing the work with the Small Business Administration and organizations that might be in academia, they might be in private industry, that we would never get a chance to talk to without crowdsourcing, because the crowdsourcing program opens this up for other people to participate and work with us. Within our organizations, we may not know who has the brilliant mind around a solution that could be super helpful to us. We hear sometimes about these stories where, they put a question out to right there in your organization, and you think, I am in a scientific side and only scientists are going to be able to answer this, but we're going to go ahead and put it out anyway. And someone who's a hobbyist and is in the creative field may say, oh, I'm in a group that does this. I go to a meetup where we're working on something like this, and they come back with a solution that makes that original problem more understandable, more moving along that timeline into accelerating getting what they need to make something critical for the organization work. And we really get to know people in a different way through crowdsourcing. We get to understand that people-powered creativity and innovation comes from all of the diversity that you can imagine. So this is where, when you think about why you're doing something, understanding how you want to approach getting to that solution or getting to that engagement with people can be absolutely pivotal. Going to the next slide. I think we missed a slide. Maybe not. Okay, we'll go back here to who. All right, here's where we are in the who. And I want to slow down on this because I can't emphasize enough how important this is. When you're asking people to voluntarily contribute their intelligence and their time and their creativity and their interest and their passion around things, we want to meet them in a way that there's some incentive for them to participate. We have to start out with making this a safe space for collaboration where people can share ideas. And a lot of times in organizations, this means a culture change. And so what you're going to put out as your crowdsourcing program is going to be something that might be a step in a direction of testing the waters, right? For you as an organization to run a program where you're first getting people into this change, into a collaborative workspace, into getting people to share their ideas outside of just direct, conversations with their team or in their own conference rooms and Zoom meetings, people will take the time to see, is this a safe place? Are the rules of engagement clear? Is there talk of and documentation that there will be follow through on the part of the hosts? Because people value the participation for an incentive. And one of those incentives is that things that are good and important and matching up with what you're trying to do, that they're going to be implemented. And is your project interesting? Does it have passion and get people excited about it? If your project is just about what you get out of it, like I want everybody to do everything for me, but what we do for them isn't important, that's not collaboration. That's, single source going out just for what you need to get. For crowdsourcing, an incentive is that you're going to take it seriously, that you're going to actually care what people contribute. And a lot of times what we see is people will test the waters and they're going to put in not their best ideas, but they'll put in something to see how they're treated. So think about how you want to engage with these people. And I always say, no matter what, you always thank people for participating. It is important that they showed up. The people that show up are valued. The ideas that come are valued. And if you can't imagine why something would work because you're used to thinking about things in your own box, we've got to break that box down for real innovative leaps. And we had this conversation a few weeks ago with one of our partners, in that, he said, if you were around 12 years ago and someone said, hey, I'm putting in this crowdsourcing program, something I'd like to see here to make my work-life balance better is that we have some work from home time. And back then people would have been like, yeah, this isn't really a thing. I happened to work in an organization back then that did get this suggestion, and they started piloting remote work 2 to 3 days a week required. So that at the time, this sounded like that is just the craziest thing we've ever heard of, to it became critical when the coronavirus hit and we were all out for COVID in 2020. And then for organizations that had started piloting that and kind of had their way into it, they were able to pivot. So I say, don't close down any idea that might be ahead of its time. It might not sound like it's relevant right now, but it could be critical. So back to this who and why we're engaging them. How does what you're trying to do connect with the people you are asking to participate? What are you committing to doing when the submissions and the top finishers and the winners are chosen? Because we know that dead ends kill innovation. It's like collecting for the sake of having the information, but no commitment to doing something or a next step. That is a barrier to entry for your community that will be participating right there. If they don't see it clearly in your brief, if they don't see it in your workflow, if they don't see it in what your plan is, that's one of the things that you can think about. Whereas if you are very clear with that, here's the incentive. We're excited about this. This matters at this level. It matters to multiple people and organizations. It matters to the world. It's important. And what we're going to do is clearly go through a selection process. Those that are selected, we're going to pilot, or those that are selected, we will run some point solution or problem campaigns after. And then we will make sure that we include the voice of the people who participated and got those selected and winning ideas into our conversations or into the prototyping or somehow into a next step. So on with the next thing. Here's where we often start, as we could see from our poll results too, is that we have the most people starting with something internal when we're using crowdsourcing to try to get innovative solutions. And what they're doing are things like suggestion boxes, discovery, and ideation. So our poll results matched up with that pretty well. And what we would like to share with you all today is how absolutely important it is that you go ahead and embrace this starting point. I heard from a few folks recently that they're like, we're here on an open innovation platform. We want to be getting breakthrough innovations, and we feel like we're not doing the best we could be doing. And we wanted to come back to you all and say, this doesn't need to be a phase of consternation or frustration for you, because you're laying the groundwork for building up to these next steps. Without this groundwork, you won't get those breakthrough ideas down the road. So embrace where you are, meet your organization where it is, communicate clearly to the people who are participating, to your leadership, to say, this is important that we take these things that we're doing, the suggestion boxes, the discovery, collecting ideas, and that we communicate effectively with our internal audience, building this place of safety and trust and openness about what's going to happen with their contributions. And when we have this baseline set with them, then we can get to these next steps, because they're going to say, you know what, I participated in this thing, or I saw my colleagues participate in this thing. They were taken seriously. The organization did something with it. And we now feel like, okay, if they're going to ask a big question, then I'm going to go ahead and go bring my biggest, brightest, best ideas and something I've been tinkering around behind the scenes. I'm going to bring that to the next type of program. So meet yourselves where you are. Okay, so this is the part, Lizzie, for our second poll. Now, we're going to ask you all, what would you like to do for your future programs? And choose all that apply. Like if you've already told us where you are today, would you like to keep doing that? Would you like to add on some of the other types of programs about your why, about what the programs are, and who you will involve? And take a minute to think about the possibilities for all of the things that you can do. While we're sitting here taking the poll, we'll talk about engaging a crowd outside of your own internal program, and finding out who out there would be best suited to helping you. And one of the things that we could spend an entire conversation on is diversity. Crowdsourcing is such a magical way to level a playing field, to let everyone participate, regardless of their background, their education, where their office is, their abilities that, put them into the job that they're in. And it also gets some creative thinking around this. We talk about building teams a lot of times in our crowdsourcing organizations, like just if somebody comes up with a solution or idea, build a team around that. Always include, so if it's a technical solution, bring creative people in, bring in people who think so far outside of the current way of doing things that they're going to challenge this. And if you have a creative solution, bring in a technical or engineering or scientific person who can help provide some structure around that, or think about it from their perspective and way of doing things. Obviously, we'd like to see this for equity and inclusion too, where you can, by not prescribing who is involved, and you open it up and send it to people who are in school, or maybe hobbyists, or people from other cultures and people who live in different parts of the world. Maybe these solutions exist somewhere and we would like to know those people and license from them, or build some type of partnership. And crowdsourcing is such a beautiful way to do that. How are we on the results? Did people participate? I hope you all did.
We have great results. I'm going to end the poll now, and then we'll go over the results in a little after the Q&A.
Okay, perfect. All right, next part. This is another thing to factor in. Thankful to my team of collaborators here in professional services. This is Rico's contribution to our conversation among everything else that we've talked about here. What is your innovation risk profile? And this maps up to what is your, what are you doing internally? Are you working at your curated aspect? Are you moving out into the full open? When you look at something that's simple, intermediate, or complex, we can also frame this in the lane of, this is low risk. We're looking for incremental improvements. We're looking to collect the ideas. It's a very straightforward type of program. And the other words on here are some of the stages we talk about building to assess what's coming in and understand the value of what people are contributing. In the intermediate, we have a medium risk. You're capitalizing on adjacent opportunities. You are able to take that iterative development or solve a problem that's more complex and requires some investment. So approach your growth in your program by the by this risk profile, identify your why, and look at whether that why is low, medium, or high risk, and understand the complexities, the resources, the expertise and timing that you need as you move from simple to intermediate to this complex problem solving through crowdsourcing. Because in your complex and high risk, these are things that are transformational opportunities, a moonshot, something that's really a big deal for your organization or your industry or your community as a whole, whether that's in creative or social or business. And you can, again, meet yourselves where you are and understand for your organization as innovation leaders, with the leadership of your agencies and your companies, that you communicate what you need to support your crowdsourcing programs at these different levels, and build your metrics and goals around the expectations of this. Because if you're doing something low risk with incremental improvement, someone should not be expecting that you're going to have a breakthrough transformational result. It could happen, it could, but that's not generally what's going to happen in that framework. So if we set our goals and expectations, we communicate these clearly among our teams, among participants, and into leadership that's funding this and providing the framework for it, then we can grow in these ways. All right, the next one. Here is our timeline in the growth journey. And this to me is super aspirational. You know, we exist, we're doing something in this first few years, existing infrastructure with an internal audience. We're doing surveys and discovery and ideation. And this is where, when I say existing infrastructure, I mean, we've asked somebody to lead this program, but they have another day job. I don't know how many of you can say that this is you, but I imagine if we were running a poll right now, it would be a lot of you started out this way with, oh, hey, can you just go ahead and do this challenge program, or can you do this crowdsourcing thing? This sometimes takes people 1 to 3 years that they spend before they move up to the next one, which is dedicated infrastructure. This is where you can branch out into a curated audience. And I hear people talking about this now, like, we're going to do this, but my goal is in 2 years, I want to be talking to this group outside of our organization, somebody that we would like to potentially partner with, or we know that they're working on this, but we really haven't figured out how to have the conversations yet. This is a place you can continue doing discovery, you can do ideation, the iterative development, challenge competitions, which are fun. Those are incentive prize-based competitions. Government's great at that. Hack and codeathons, where you're working collaboratively with other people. And if you were going into a growth journey, you need a couple years under your belt usually with this, because it can take 6 months to a year to set one of these programs up, especially on the government side, where you're looking at PII and legal issues and what statutes you're running this under, and making sure that all those things are neatly put together, and that you're putting a marketing campaign together and getting your communications people involved. So that can take some time. And then we look out into the 3 years plus, if you've done these other things. And this is strategic partnerships. This is an open audience. Sometimes, because we know, sometimes people just go straight to this, the strategic partnerships, the transformative things with an open audience. You're just ready to jump right in. Sometimes an organization is doing all 3 of these things at once, with different groups in the organization learning at different levels. So here I would say, look around your agency, look around in your communities of practice, talk with those customer success representatives here at IdeaScale, and say, would you like to talk with people who have done something you're looking to do, and just help get some community around that. Because when you get into these strategic partnerships and an open audience where you can run any of these programs, it is such an exciting place to be, where I just know from experience, just mind-blowing when you can work so quickly with people outside of your organization and find answers to problems that you thought well, this is going to take forever. And then you find out, oh, there's, like a small group of people in Minnesota who have been doing this for 2 years. And how did you not know about them? How would you know about them? Crowdsourcing. It's going to get you there. So again, you're going to go from existing in your current structure into exploring outside into this curated audience, and then getting into the transformation ability with your open audience and strategic partnerships. So next one. This is our interactive Q&A. You see a few questions in there already. If you would like to say your question out loud, put live next to your question so we know that you'd like to ask that live. And I'm going to hand this over to Lizzie to go through the questions, and I'll answer, and then we can have conversation for those who would like to have a little like auditory verbal chat about your question.
Yep, just let me know. Type in your question in the Q&A box at the bottom on Zoom. Type live if you would like us to allow you to talk and ask your question to Tammi yourself. But we already have some great ones coming in, so I will push this one to you, Tammi. If the culture is not conducive to open innovation, what are the 3 most important changes that should be made by an organization's top management?
Say that again. If the culture is not open.
If the culture is not conducive to open innovation, what are the 3 most important changes that should be made by an organization's top management? If you do have 3.
Okay, so I think this kind of gets right into what we talked about from the beginning. Open is this full engagement with the public, with the world, with people outside of your organization. Start internally by getting some wins internally. And the number one thing I'd say you should do when you do a crowdsourcing project, make sure it's something that matters. I get like so my stomach gets about it, but it's really, it's not going to work if somebody says, we're just going to do this thing to do this thing, and then we're going to see what happens. Now, choose something meaningful, choose something relevant, choose something that's of value to the organization, and do it internally. And be very inclusive about what you're doing internally, and catch those wins, and say, here's what we could do if we were going outside of our organization, and pick some strategic partners. Pick some curated partners people that you might want to work with. But that's hard, is that culture change internally is the hardest thing. And I think that this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this webinar, because I hear almost every day conflicting things. Like, leadership wants these breakthrough transformative solutions to things, but they're not building the culture that it takes to get you there. And I'll go back to one of the slides I said before, which was you have to have a plan for implementation or prototyping. You can't just collect solutions and ideas and go, now they're all ours, mine. You need to show your participants what it is you're going to do with it, that it's going to be assessed, that you're going to prototype it, that you're going to maybe even just continue the conversation about it and say, we're going to have a panel on this at a conference. We're going to have a webinar where we're going to talk about these different solutions. You don't have to always have a lot of like prize money or some kind of big incentive, but you've got to do a thing that brings it to life. Like, it's got to come to life somehow.
Awesome.
Thank you for that question.
Let's see. All right. So this one came in a couple of different forms of the same type of question. But for an organization or higher ups that aren't fully bought into the idea of using crowdsourcing or open innovation, what are some tactics to help convince them, to help persuade higher ups or organizations that this is something that we need to do and this is a good idea?
I thought that I just answered that. That question, so I'm not sure what else.
It's coming in a couple of different times in different forms.
Yeah.
Well, let's go
let's hold that, and then if people still don't, if I still haven't made that answer clear enough for folks, we'll get somebody onto live to ask that, or ask it in a different way. Like if you've asked that question and you still don't feel like you have an answer, go ahead and pop that in the Q&A again. So
okay, perfect.
do that.
Here's one specific to like your role at IdeaScale and IdeaScale. What is your recommendation for organizing and filtering ideas? Do you go specific campaign types or use tags? What tips?
As a primer for the groundwork of how we talk about these things, I would say that you should work with your folks, whoever your customer success representatives are, or for the team in professional services that are the innovation strategists, and to understand a workflow that's going to match up with your organization, that at least does the one thing I said in here, which is that you're going to at least assess them and say what you're going to do next. As far as some of that specific strategy, I think we could do some other webinars on how to organize them. I mean, I love using tags. I like having written assessments where people rank them or write out their reasonings. Comments help, voting helps. I mean, there's all kinds of things that help. I mean, what we think as leaders or what we think as the observers of something might be important. It could be totally different when you have your entire community voting and commenting and you realize like, hey, wait a minute, we thought this was important, but everyone's focusing on this other thing. Use your votes, use your comments, and leadership. We highly recommend that you listen to the crowd when the crowd tells you something's important and needs attention.
Thank you. Let's go with, what is the value add or the main value add of crowdsourcing over other forms of innovation?
Well, I want to talk about this a lot. I
thought you'd like this one.
Yeah, the value of crowdsourcing for me and my experience is that you quickly understand what's happening at a macro level, at a much larger level than if you are keeping it within a small group and you're testing and trying something new and testing, or if you've contracted for a solution that you think exists. So in crowdsourcing, we define the problem and then we say, okay, let's bring in as many solutions as possible. Whereas a traditional way of doing things is to say, here's the solution we would like to build. And then you're just limited to that solution. So a crowd says, here's a problem, bring us as many solutions as possible. And then you see where there are similarities, you see where there are things you hadn't even thought of, and it all comes to you very fast. Because if you can tap into a crowd in a 3 to 6 month time frame, maybe a year time frame from the point that you begin to build your program, you could engage anywhere from 200 to 2,000 people, or depending on how big your program is, hundreds of thousands of people. And that whittles down to very quickly, you couldn't hire those 20 people. You couldn't hire 2,000 people to give you potential solutions to things in 6 months or a year. You just wouldn't have the budget for it. Most people don't. So you crowdsource, you bring these in, and it funnels things down for you very quickly. I think that's just such a huge upside. And that's part of this accelerating a timeline to development, is that crowdsourcing in and of itself is accelerating a timeline to development, with the understanding that if you are about to make a really huge financial investment in something and you say, is this really the direction that we want to be going in? Let's check this. You crowdsource a 20% or 30% solution to that problem. And if it comes back where you're like, yeah, this just isn't happening yet, you don't have to go through with that big $1 billion program, whatever it is that you're thinking about doing. You could say, hey, what we've learned from this is that we need to pivot. And that is a huge cost savings to organizations and agencies in the long run that you can learn quickly from crowdsourcing. Are we going in a direction that makes sense? Can we go here, then here, then here, then here? Because that straight line doesn't exist in reality. It just exists in our mind that we're going to do that. Crowdsourcing brings you on a path that's much more natural for discovering and iterating what it is you're trying to find for these solutions. Okay, I see one question I want to answer.
Go for it.
All right, what about copycats? No more secrets, all the sharing. That is a really important question. Because when you come into a collaborative environment, you come into a crowdsourcing environment, you are agreeing to participate by the rules of engagement, that we're here to share together and help each other get better. A really well-run crowdsourcing program will have very specific rules about intellectual property rights, what they're asking you to share, what is owned by you. Generally in crowdsourcing, all the programs I've worked on, the organization hosting is not there to take your intellectual property. They're there to learn and then license that. So how you structure this is that you put in the rules and you're clear what you're sharing. And most organizations will say, don't put any confidential IP in here. Don't give us your secret sauce. Talk about something in a way that we know you know what you're talking about. And then we whittle these things down. Some materials are sent privately to the crowdsourcing managers. Sometimes when you get to that point, the crowdsourcing host will say, okay, we're going to put some money into prototyping with these organizations that we know they've shared enough in their documentation that this is here. And if you're not comfortable with that, then this isn't the right organization or the right type of methodology for you. And that's okay. Like a lot of companies are hesitant to, or individuals are hesitant to get involved in crowdsourcing because they want to hold on to their IP or they want to hold on to what they're working on. It's a personality thing. It's a risk thing. What's your risk profile? I can say that in the 15 years that I've been doing this, the best incredible innovations have happened when all of these really smart people get together and they even want to help each other out. Robotics competitions, people are sharing materials with other teams. They're helping each other because everybody wants everything to get better. And when we've gone on site to test, in one of my previous jobs, we've gone on site to test some things and see how does it work in the real world versus theoretical that got them to that point in the challenge competition. All of the teams wanted to work together. We've seen partnerships come together from people who are contributing. And a lot of times people have the same ideas, but they didn't know other people out there were also interested in these things. And on the IdeaScale platform, we have the ability to build teams, and you could find these commonalities and say, hey, I can't do this alone. And we can't do this alone. We really do need community to help us bring the best solutions to the world's problems. So that's just the playing field that crowdsourcing and collaborative environments are in. So thank you so much for asking that question and understanding the nuances and the feelings around that, because it is a change. It's hard sometimes to make that change, and you don't have to. It's here for those who want to play on the playing field.
Great. Thank you, Tammi, and thank you all for your questions. I think we need to move on.
Okay.
Tammi has a little bit more to present, but thank you.
Just a little bit more. All right, let me close this down here. All right. So now that we've gone through the primer, I hope that we all have a base understanding about the methodologies, the framework, some of the strategies. We know that it's critical to support and inspire innovation at every one of these levels that you see. Everything's important. Your internal audience, your ideation, your discovery, the people who contribute, they matter, their answers matter. And we'd love to see that the host organizations are treating these people with kindness and appreciation, and that at the very minimum, there is conversation about what happens with these ideas and solutions that are coming in, so that you can build up to the next level. Start where you are. Learn and experiment. Innovation should be, we've failed 10 times to get that 11th time where we figured it out. This is the place to be high risk. Let people fail, thank them for bringing in failing ideas and solutions, because now you know what not to do. It's really important, and to get the communications and the messaging and the collaboration conversations around that from you who are innovation managers, from leaders, to say, hey, you know what? I would rather see an entire year go by of ideas we can't implement because we're not quite there yet, but I got 300 ideas we can't implement. So we know that 301st or 400th one is going to be something we can really use. It's important to bring these keys together to say, we know what not to do. Let's keep going in a direction that we can do that. And it's an opportunity too to say, maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe we're trying to find the wrong type of solution and we need to pivot. And that's how we get true innovation going. So start where you are, learn and experiment, explore further with new communities, with complex problems, and eventually you're going to find that you are expanding and doing meaningful and transformative collaborations and crowdsourcing for your program, and you're going to be so excited with those results. So thank you all for your time, for your questions, and for your participation in collaboration. So here's where we are. What would everyone like to do? Oh, I love it. So we're up to seeing that more than 50% of the organizations want to go into problem solving, and other people would like to do developments and get into timelines for solution. That was kind of a trick one on the accelerating timelines to solution, because you know, oh, you know what, Lizzie? Okay, we'll get there in a second. Everything you do in crowdsourcing is accelerating a timeline to solution. Sometimes it's more purposeful than others, but in general, that's what it is. What types of innovation programs are you going to run in the future? We're staying with discovery, ideation, going up in iterative development. Excellent. So some more people going into challenge and prize competitions and hackathons and grand challenges. Wow, the 29% wanting to do grand challenges. That is super exciting. We are thrilled for you. That'll be so fun. And who is your future crowd? Okay, this is incredible. You all are looking at changing from your internal groups and going out into the curated and open communities. 45% of the audience wants to do some fully open innovation. And I think that that's going to be really exciting for you all, and we'll look forward to hearing your results. Do we have the results of the initial poll of what animal?
We can launch that right now. We have a few minutes left, so let's launch our last poll. Don't worry, everyone, it's a pretty fun one. It's fun and quick. Let me launch that. All right, Tammy, take it away.
Yeah, so we did this at the beginning, and
sorry, we have to launch it now so everyone can take this right now.
We didn't do it at the beginning. Okay, sorry. We really wanted to know at the beginning. Your animal personas. Sorry, Lizzie, I got us confused with our practice session. What is your innovation animal persona? Are you a collaborative culture like bees? Are you problem solving like squirrels? You guys have all seen the videos of the squirrels doing everything they can on the obstacle courses. Are you engaging others like penguins who do all of their things together in communities, you know, high five? Iterative development like dogs, they train, learn their lessons. Are you accelerating timeline to solution like orcas? So what is your innovation animal persona? I hope people are still with us. And
Yeah, we're getting some great responses.
great.
There's
Yeah,
some leaders at the moment. We'll see if it evens out more, but we have a couple leading segments.
I know. I think I want to be one thing, but I'm really kind of another. That's like I aspire to be an orca, but I think I'm really more about the the iterative development with dogs, like learning upon learning upon learning.
All right,
Lizzie, what do you think yours is?
I already know what I am. I'm a collaborative culture bee.
You're a bee, queen bee.
But I think I could use a little bit more of every other kind too, mixed in there. Could evolve.
Great.
All right, I'm going to wrap up this poll now and we'll see what everyone else is. Share results. All right, can you see that?
Yeah, look, everybody's bees, 40% bees, 26% squirrels. I like hanging out with squirrels because they are so like determined no matter what to get that answer. Engaging others, penguins, super fun. Want to hang out and party with those people. Iterative development, not many dogs. There's only a few percent of us who do that. I learned something, then I learned something else on top of that, and then all of a sudden we're brilliant. And not many orcas either. Yeah. So I think that tells us a little something about who are the orcas, who are the people who are going to just make that thing happen and be like, I've got it. I see the solution and I'm just going to go do that thing. So let's think about balancing out our teams so that we have a little bit of the personalities of each, especially if you've got leaders who can be those dogs and orcas to like push those solutions into reality. That's awesome. All right. Thanks again, everyone. I'm so grateful for your time and attention today.
Thank you, Tammy. I will close things out for us here. I'm going to send my email in the chat. If anyone would like to set up an assessment for your organization, an innovation assessment, feel free to email me and I will set you up with one of our innovation strategists. They're amazing. It'll be great, a good, productive conversation. So just email me. I'm sending it right now. 1 second. All right, so my email is now in the chat, and thank you, Tammy. That was a great presentation. She's done it for us internally. She's done it externally. Everyone wants to hear it. And thank you, everyone. Have a great day.